Buddhism is very appealing to many people, but there are two aspects of it which are a little bit unappealing. One is the predominance of lists, and the other is the enthusiasm for rules, lists and rules. And we recently had a section in the Lankavatara Sutra of verses which were nothing more than lists. It even seemed a bit over the top. So many and so arbitrary were the lists. But we looked into it and we found it to be a very detailed and insightful communication of enlightenment practice. It's all about becoming established in the realization of the true nature of our awareness. And now we've come to a section in the Lankavatara Sutra which is about rules. These rules don't seem particularly relevant. They seem to be addressed to somebody who's become a renunciate in India. But they represent the work of the enlightenment practitioner. It's sometimes understood that enlightenment is it. Once you're enlightened, problem solved. Nothing else to worry about. You can coast along in a cloud of bliss. But enlightenment is when the real work begins. When the Buddha reached enlightenment, he didn't get up and start teaching. He spent several weeks consolidating it. That was the real work that he made. That was the real effort. Up until that point, when he wasn't the Buddha, when he was what could be described as a spiritual seeker, he underwent tremendous disciplines, tremendous austerities. And you might think, well, that was the real work, that was the real effort. But it wasn't. That was nothing. That had nothing to do with enlightenment. There might be other benefits to following such disciplines, to following particular rules. But enlightenment isn't one of them. Following rules does not get you enlightened. But once enlightenment has been touched, once there is realization of the true nature of your awareness, that's when the work begins. And that's when you need to start asking yourself, having touched enlightenment, why are you not in continuous enlightenment? And this is because the mind still has its own momentum. Our psychology still has its own momentum. And that momentum takes us away from enlightenment. And it has to be worked on. We can keep coming back as often as possible to awareness, but there's often resistance to that. There's resistance in how we relate to the world. This is what these rules are addressing, or giving us an opportunity to examine. It's about developing insight into our relationship with the world and how that impedes our enlightenment. So the previous verse was about possessions, and this next verse is about sleeping and eating. verse 330. He is not to sleep on a perforated couch, nor is he to smear the ground with mud. He is not to have a bowl made of gold, silver, brass, or copper. Some people, they have this enlightenment event, and their first inclination is, this is it. I must go and teach. And perhaps they'll start having classes, satsangs, whatever. They miss out on the fact that they still have this psychology going on. At some level they have to work on it, but I don't know how conscious they might be. And there's a danger that what happens is the enlightenment event simply feeds into the ego of their mind. And this is what's represented by the golden begging bowl. And when I was considering this verse, it struck me as quite ludicrous. Not straight away, but after contemplating it for a while, it struck me as ludicrous that there has to be a rule against having a golden begging bowl. I suppose the idea is, I'm enlightened. This is a very precious and noble thing. I should have something about me which reflects the importance of this. I need to eat, but I want to get on with my spiritual practices. So in order to show the importance of my achievements, I should have a golden begging bowl. Or perhaps that's a bit too ostentatious. I'll settle for a silver one, and so on. So here's the ego appropriating realization. The point is, the enlightenment practitioner is shifting their focus away from the world. The things in the world no longer are seen of having any intrinsic value, but there are still basic survival needs. You cannot stop interacting with the world. Ultimately, you embrace the world completely, but psychologically, we have to look at our deepest attitudes. And even here, they're filtering out into even this minimal relationship with the world, which comes in this context through begging. And also with sleeping. The first part of this verse tells us not to sleep on a perforated couch, nor to smear the ground with mud. What's this about? Well, in India, to prove that you're a holy man, you sleep on the proverbial bed of nails. This is to show you're special. So again, there's this promotion of yourself as an enlightenment practitioner, which is nothing more than the ego once again usurping the enlightenment event in your life. The other extreme is to smooth the ground with mud. Rather than just take the ground as it is, you have to prepare it so it's as comfortable as possible. No rocks or stones to disturb your good night's sleep. So even in these simple everyday necessities of sleep and food, there's a possibility of the ego usurping the enlightenment event And this is really what we have to watch out for. In these videos, I'm not promoting myself as an enlightenment practitioner. It's how I see myself. But I'm not asking you to believe it. You make up your own mind. There was an initial temptation to try and make these videos as glossy as possible. Create a bit of mystique. Or perhaps stress the importance of what's being communicated and so on. I should at least have decent production values. Well, it's difficult to ignore all of that completely, but to be honest, I'm not capable of getting the production values desired. And also, I simply want to be as natural as possible. I don't want to be promoting myself. It's not about me. It's about getting in touch as much as possible with the essence of these teachings and expressing that as much as possible in a way which is hopefully useful to you.